Beyond shameful.
Now call Deputy Catherine Murphy.
Thank you. The debacle regarding the scheduling of this debate and the way the media appears to have more information than the Dáil has brought me back to the infamous prom night when members were left to rely on information from Twitter about what was going on. The only difference is that this is happening in daylight. Look where the rush and the lack of information on that debate had led us to now, with all the current controversies surrounding IBRC and the issues pre- and post-liquidation. We know now, only through persistent questioning and freedom of information requests, that there has been a war going on between the Department and IBRC. Yet the Minister came in here that night and specifically went out of his way to imply that the management team were absolutely fantastic, a statement we now know doesn't stack up against the evidence. The rushed way in which this debate is proceeding leads me to worry that in the months to come, or even the years to come, we'll be relying on FOI requests from the Department of Transport in the same way as I am currently pursuing them with the Department of Finance to unearth the truth. And I don't believe that that's any way to do business. In another worrying nod to the current IBRC controversy, we now have concerns being raised regarding conflicts of interest of some key advisers on this sale. I read with interest a report in the business section of the Irish Independent on May 14th of this year, titled "Government Says No Conflict of Interest Over Advice." The reports that one of the key advisers has links to an investment index that placed a bet on the planned sale. But again, we're being assured that there are Chinese walls. And I want to quote from the article, and I quote, "The agency confirmed that checks are in place after it emerged that an investment index connected to one of the government's key advisers on whether to sell Aer Lingus has placed a bet on the planned 1.36 billion takeover of the airline by IAG. The investment banking arm of global finance giant Credit Suisse is one of 3 firms appointed by government agency New Era to advise on whether or not it is in the interest of the state to sell its 25.1% stake in Aer Lingus. The Irish Independent has learned that the investment index operated by Credit Suisse, a separate asset management arm, has a position in Aer Lingus shares, hoping to turn a profit on a possible sale of Aer Lingus going ahead. So the advisers are beneficiaries. At the moment, this House has been forced to proceed with a costly review of IBRC deals, a review that, it must be said, is not only costly but inherently conflicted, particularly given the most recent incidents of the special liquidator who has been assigned to conduct a review actually joining Denis O'Brien in his High Court action to injunct reports into IBRC business dealings and the unorthodox verbal agreements between senior debtors and the CEO. A very worrying trend indeed. How can we expect citizens to trust in a government handling a process when time after time this kind of thing happens? Then months or even years later, the truth emerges, and the reality then emerges who benefits and of course, and who's lost out. Just look at the history of the tribunals in this country and, in fact, the lack of follow-through on that. In 2006, when discussing the proposed sale of by Fianna Fáil of Aer Lingus, Fine Gael's Olivia Mitchell had this to say in the debate: "The Dáil has had no input into the nature of the sale. It's an insult to the Dáil and to the taxpayer who own the company. It makes it impossible for us to play the role, our role as watchdog for the public. There is simply no information on which the opposition or government backbenchers can make an informed decision. We are acting on behalf of the real owners of Aer Lingus, the citizens of Ireland." That it doesn't it seem, Minister, eerily familiar of the proceedings today? That was a Fine Gael deputy that was speaking, and the only thing that has changed is you've moved from this side of the House to that side of the House. The state stands to get $330 million for selling off this vital stake in Aer Lingus. It seems very cheap at the price. If we look at the Heathrow slots alone, which are worth more than $900 million, We know that there's at least 540 million in cash on the balance sheet in Aer Lingus. There are assets in the form of aircraft and fixed assets, not to mention the iconic brand, all significant to the value of the company. IAG must be delighted with the 330 million sales tag. What we're witnessing here is the creation of an election slush fund. And indeed, I listened to some of the debate here today. I was listening to it in my office. And there are people making pitches already for how this money will be spent. And essentially, we're going to walk away from our national airline. Meanwhile, we've invested upwards of £1 billion in a quango like Irish Water. I can't see the sense. The family treasure trove is being pillaged and it will shortly be left empty. The pension reserve fund is being decimated. CIE looks like it's to be sold, and we had to even fight to maintain our forests which were on the list of things to be sold off. Minister, you simply haven't made a compelling case. We haven't got the details to evaluate this. So essentially what we're hearing is more about spin rather than us being informed. And what about the Aer Lingus deferred pensioners? We know there's a big hole in the pension fund, and the pensioners, many of them were excluded from the process, or there was a category of them excluded from the process when decisions were being made about how the remaining funds would be used. Those people had an expectation that their concerns would be addressed, and you know that, Minister. I mean, they've made contact with you. I believe they were even outside your house.
Thank you.
Now, those hopes are now being dashed. The assurances that regional airports don't stack up against what the same outfit is doing in more populated regions in the the UK. The key question is this a prudent sale for the citizens, or is this for the purchaser the sale of the century? And I have no way of knowing, and that is no way for somebody to stand up in this House and feel that they're making a contribution to a debate when they don't know what the answer to that is.
Now call Deputy Mick